Hi, my name is Eliana Rudee, and I'm a journalist with Breaking Israel News. I've been a journalist for about 3 years, since making Aliyah 2 years ago. And before then, I was highly involved on campus in Jewish student groups, as well as Camera, APAC, Hasbara, and many other organizations. And I started my own pro-Israel college, five-college organization on my campus at Scripps College. So now we're going to speak to Dr. Michael Laitman, and I'd like to introduce this topic, something that is actually going to happen this Thursday in San Francisco in the Bay Area. So this Thursday, David Brog, who's the executive director of Christians United for Israel, is set to speak about Christian Zionists and why there's such a strong evangelical support for Israel. But the Bay Area branch of If Not Now, which is, in their own words, a movement of young Jews calling for an end to the American Jewish support for the occupation, they've called upon the Jewish community in the Bay Area to protest and cancel this Christians United for Israel event. So we have two phenomenon going on right now. We have the first, which is the Christian support for Israel, and the second, which is a Jewish group calling Israel an occupier and going against other, both Jewish and non-Jewish groups that support Israel. So my question to you, Dr. Laitman, is from a biblical perspective, where do each of these phenomena come from? And are they, in your opinion, part of biblical prophecy?
Well, I would put it this way. Where does the people of Israel come from to begin with? There is no such thing as the people of Israel in the sense that other peoples and nations exist. The Bible also says that there are 70 nations in the world, but Israel is a different nation. It's not a nation, it's a group that Abraham put together in ancient Babylon. In Babylon, there was basically the human civilization of the time. And he brought closer many people from all kinds of small nationalities and clans and groups that existed in Babylon according to one principle. He said, let's all unite together and discover the meaning of life, the essence of life. We can discover why there is a crisis that was going on at the time in Babylon. And this way we'll know what to do. If we rise above our egos, which is destroying us, which was really the reason for the crisis in Babylon of the time. They wanted to build this tower in Babylon, meaning to let their egos just run free and burst out. So by this, we bury ourselves. So let's do the opposite. Let's walk by the tenet, love covers all crimes, connection above the hatred. Who is ready for this? And that small number of people out of all the Babylonians, there were many, many nations there. Civilization expanded from there throughout the globe. But at that time, civilization was concentrated there. Those who listened, those who wanted to hear him, because he was a priest in Babylon. He was a very distinguished individual. He was a teacher. He was an ideological personality in Babylon. So they came to him, and from them he built his group, as Maimonides writes. Maimonides especially wrote a lot about it, and other sources as well. Also, Bereshit Rabbah writes about it, but especially Maimonides. So that's when he built his group, and he called his group Israel, from the words Yashar Kel, straight to the Creator, straight to the revelation of God, because this was his purpose. And that group is not a nation per se. It is first and foremost a connection, a collection of all kinds of peoples that were all over Babylon, which afterwards covered the earth. And out of that group, every small group in Babylon became a nation: German, Italian, French, Indian, Chinese, etc. And therefore, the people of Israel is not a people, it's an ideological group. And if there is an ideology, it is called the people of Israel. If there is no ideology, no connection, no unity, the way Abraham determined, yes, that over every hatred and every egoistic separation among people, we have to, despite it, cover these bad relationships with good connections among us. If we do this, we are called one nation because we are connected together on top of our egos. If we can't do this, we're not a nation. There is no people of Israel if not through connection among them. So we existed from the time of Abraham until, well, for 1,500 years, until the ruin of the Second Temple, about 2,000 years ago. And the ruin of the temple happened because of unfounded hatred, baseless hatred, when we fell from the level of love that we had in the days of Abraham. For about 1,500 years, we fell into hatred. We couldn't cover the hatred with love. The love disappeared. And from that state onward, the people of Israel is called the people of Israel in exile. So it's not exactly Israel because there's no straight to the Creator. They're not directed toward love, bestowal, mutual support, mutual responsibility. It's dispersed. It exists like some sort of a group that doesn't know why it exists to this day. Today, we are in a very special situation. We've come to the end of our egoistic development. The whole world has reached the end of its egoistic development. The world is beginning to understand that it's egoistically tied in one system, and it doesn't know how to conduct itself correctly in this system. So if we're talking about today, we have a very unique picture, which the wisdom of Kabbalah talked about ages ago.
Thank you very much. So, with that said, what is the significance of this breaking apart of groups within the nation of Israel? Why is it significant, especially in terms of the redemption? And how should we deal with these type of groups?
First of all, the people of Israel, out of their 12 tribes, the people of Israel lost 10 tribes already in the ruin of the first temple. So 1,000 years prior to 1,000 years prior to the ruin of the second temple, the first temple was ruined, and it was also because of hatred, but the hatred was not absolute. It was kind of partial. And then 10 tribes were lost out of the 12, and 2 tribes more or less remained. What is called today the people of Israel, we know that it's only about 2 tribes, two and a quarter, so to speak, out of everything that was before. And that's how we exist to this day. But if we begin to connect and unite, if we begin to bring back to ourselves that philosophy, the approach, that connection that should be in the people of Israel, because otherwise it doesn't exist, by this we'll be awakening such forces in the world that we will reawaken these 10 tribes, and they'll return to us. And we'll be able to reunite, and this will be the true people of Israel. This is on the one hand. On the other hand, the minute we begin to work on the connection between us, because we are connected to all the nations through bad and good forces, by this we will awaken the whole of humanity to relate to us favorably if we are good to one another. The relation of all of humanity to us is a projection of the relationships among the Jews within the people of Israel. We hate each other. We reject one another. We can't stand each other. And this is how we awaken anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is a projection of the egoistic force that exists within the people of Israel.
Interesting. So, do you think that this Jewish on Jewish war, we can call it, is this part of a biblical prophecy, or is it something that's completely unnecessary and unfounded?
From the moment we came out of Egypt, through the Sinai desert, and came to build the land of Israel. Throughout this way, we were constantly at war between forces that were for connection of the people and forces that were for separation of the people. The bad force and the good force, the plus and the minus that exists in all of nature. But on the human level, it is especially evident, and especially in the people of Israel, because it's the most evolved nation. So to this day, this war has not ended. We can see this war, especially in Israel, but also in Jews overseas, but especially in Israel. You can see it with the parties and how people fight one another and everything we have here. The only thing that can save us, both in terms of the relationships between us and in terms of the hatred from the rest of the world, which hates us and will hate us more and more. And from day to day, we will see how it intensifies the hatred toward us from the rest of the world. And it's because within, we're not correcting ourselves. And this is why we are drawing on ourselves these negative forces, forces of hatred on ourselves. So this will continue until we succeed in understanding that our destination, our vocation, is to connect above all the problems, above all the differences, as it was at the time of Abraham. It's the same method. Love covers all crimes. The crime of hatred remains, but we don't talk about it, we don't touch it. We talk only about the connection between us, the positive ones, and what's underneath, we cover it. If we want to work in this way, we'll come to a state where we will succeed in being like a sandwich. Underneath, you have the force, the power of reception, the hatred. And above it, the power of bestowal and love. This is called Mount Sinai, Har Sin'ah, mountain of hatred. We rise above the mountain of hatred, Sin'ah, and on top, at the top of the mountain, we build the temple. People think that for this, we need to be good kids. Yes, as children, to connect. But it's not true. We will get worse and worse and will become meaner. But each time we have to rise above the ego and build love on top of the hatred, love on top of the hatred, until we get to the top level, which is called the end of correction, the final correction. This method is not very well known. It's not the usual way people work, because people think love means that there's no hatred between us, no rejection and no repulsion. It's not true. It's not. Mature people understand that you cannot have day without night, bad without good, plus without minus. Everything has to be balanced in nature. This is how we have to conduct ourselves in our relationships, and we have to set an example to the nations of the world in this. Israel needs to be a light unto nations, and this means setting the right examples to the nations of the world. Please.
Thank you. So, in terms of Christian supporters of Israel and non-Jewish supporters of Israel, how do you see that in terms of the spiritual significance?
The wisdom of Kabbalah doesn't really mention this. It talks about the correction. We should thank Providence, we should thank the Creator who set up who established groups in the world that support us, like evangelicals and others. But it doesn't help our correction. It doesn't. We need to understand that only the true law, which is called the wisdom of Kabbalah, that talks about how we can get closer to each other, get closer. Only by this we will be able to save ourselves and save the world from a world war. There is no other method that can help the world spare the upcoming blows, because as our egos intensify and grow, they will put us in a heap of troubles. According to the wisdom of Kabbalah, there can be a third nuclear world war, but we can prevent it. But the evangelicals and other Christians who are in favor of Israel, on one hand, it's good that they're helping us and support us. On the other hand, perhaps it's not a very good service because we rely on them, and it prevents us from seeing that we are the only ones, that we are alone in the world, that no one's in our favor, and we really have to do something about it. And we can't rely on anything, including religions, because even the Jewish religion, Judaism itself, is divided and fragmented into myriad pieces, and they're all hateful of each other too. And therefore, this too is not good. We can't find the right basis for connection in our religion, because the religious people are also not connected. They're also fundamentally selfish. This is why only the wisdom of Kabbalah, which talks about connection on top of our egos, can bring this special force that will correct us and we'll be connected to each other, even though we'll have our own egos, yet we'll be able to rise above them and connect on the second floor, so to speak. This is the right connection.
So on a practical level, what does this correction look like? How do you get such groups, such fragmented groups, to begin loving each other and become that light unto the nations?
That's a big problem. It's a worldwide problem. Because we're not doing this, we are awakening, stirring up anti-Semitism. If we concentrated on connection among Jews, the rest of the nations would help us. They would immediately help us. The whole problem is that we are rejecting each other and therefore are drawing on ourselves hatred from the rest of the world. How do we do this? In the wisdom of Kabbalah, this process is explained in a very clear way, and we learn it. For example, our organization has in Israel tens of thousands of people who study it with us. All over the world, we have about 2 million students studying it and realizing it, but it's still a handful. It's still a handful. To awaken Jews to connection, to unity, even to understand that this is what our future, our fate depends on. They don't want to listen yet. It's very difficult for us to disseminate this. Although we're not asking for any money, we're not getting any support from anyone, we ourselves pay our way. It's a non-profit organization, and that's how we've been. But when we go out to the people of Israel, it's still very difficult for them to listen to the fact that connection, unity among us, is the solution to all of our problems, the problems of Israel. Although we're trying to go out to the media We broadcast. We circulate essays and articles everywhere. And yet, it's a stiff-necked people.
Well, unless you'd like to add anything more about this topic, I'd really like to thank you, Dr. Michael Laitman, for your time and speaking with me today.
I would like to add just one thing, Eliana. First of all, your questions were very much to the point. They were brief and you're a very serious person, I can tell. I would recommend for you, because we have tons of material in English, we have a huge site with tons of content. We have large groups in the English-speaking world, as well as in Israel. We have people in Israel who are in charge of the communication in English. We also have holidays. You're invited to come over and visit us. We'd be happy to have you. So you get to know our activities in our organization.
Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it.
I think you'd find it an interesting phenomenon. Thank you. Thank you, and have a great year. Shana Tova.